I wanted to also introduce Rebecca Schild. She is the new environmental coordinator for the Fort Lewis College. The Fort Lewis College is now a signatory to the College University President's Climate Commitment. And the idea is that for colleges and universities to be carbon neutral by 2050. So there's a work cut out for her trying to move forward in that direction. So right now they have 3 new buildings that have been recently constructed that are applying for LEED certification. And the idea behind LEED certification is one of the tenets is that you will reduce your energy use, use low carbon sources and renewable energy sources. So it's a direction to try to achieve sustainability at the local level instead of at the national level.
Our mission is to strengthen students' commitment to a more socially and ecologically responsible world. And we do that by connecting them with ways to make change both on campus and in the community. So what we really need are those mechanisms for connecting them to change. You know, we can have a lot of ideas, but if we don't have the actual infrastructure or the projects that are happening, then students really won't be getting involved. I think that Mark also mentioned that Fort Lewis College is signatory to the President's College and President's Climate Commitment, which basically is an international college and university president's commitment to pledge each institution to carbon neutrality by 2050. Currently there are 670 signatories, and Fort Lewis was a charter signatory in 2007. So we have quite a hefty goal ahead of us. And I think that we're doing a really great job already just by committing to LEED building. All of our new buildings on campus have been certified as LEED Gold or are pursuing certification. But there's more to that. You know, there's so much that the institution can do, but again, there needs to be this continued support from the infrastructure that we have, from utilizing the strongest resources that we have in this community. So it's great to just see that everybody's interested in this, that we can continue to build a stronger coalition to move some of these initiatives forward. We're honored to present a video conference with James Woolsey, who is the former CIA director. Woolsey will argue that a clean policy, which is distributed renewable energy, is essential for our present national security. Woolsey's message on the threat of our energy policy on national security is a voice that we sometimes do not hear. This message is timely, as environmentalists, business leaders, and policymakers alike are realizing the importance of appropriate planning for a future with ever-increasing resource constraints. James Woolsey is chairman of Woolsey Partners, LLC. He is a venture partner and senior advisor to Vantage Point Venture Partners of San Bruno, California. Mr. Woolsey currently chairs the Strategic Advisory Group of the Washington, D.C. Private Equity Fund, and he is of counsel to the Washington, D.C. office of the Boston-based law firm Goodwin Procter. In the above capacities, he specializes in a range of alternative energy and security issues. Mr. Woolsey previously served in the U.S. government on 5 different occasions, where he held presidential appointments in 2 Republican and 2 Democratic administrations, most recently as the Director of Central Intelligence from 1993 to 1995. Mr. Woolsey serves on a range of government, corporate, and nonprofit advisory boards and chairs several, including that of the Washington firm Executive Action, LLC. He serves on the National Commission on Energy Policy. He is currently co-chairman of the Committee of Present Danger. He is chairman of the advisory board of the Clean Fuels Foundation and the New Uses Council, and a trustee of the Center for Strategic and Budgetary Assessments. Mr. Woolsey has served in the past as a member of boards of directors on a number of publicly and privately held companies, generally in fields related to technology and security. Mr. Woolsey was born in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and attended Tulsa public schools. He received his BA degree from Stanford University, an MA from Oxford University, and an LLB from Yale Law School. Mr. Woolsey is a frequent contributor of articles to major publications, and from time to time gives public speeches like this one and media interviews on the subjects of foreign affairs, defense, energy, and intelligence. All of these presentations and travel are done pro bono, and his message is not sponsored by any group, private or corporate. He is married to Suzanne Woolsey, and they have 3 sons. Well, with that, we'll welcome Mr. Woolsey via video conference.
First of all, I was honored to be asked to be with you this evening, if only virtually there in Durango. We're in an office building right across the street from Dulles Airport here in Washington. But to tell you the truth, since I spent 22 years as a Washington lawyer and then some time out at the CIA in the Clinton administration, I'm actually honored to be invited into any polite company for any purpose at all. I found that in various discussions with groups, one issue comes up, whatever the topic of the speech or the remarks, which is, when you were out there at the CIA, did you ever take part in any, covert operations? And the answer is yes, and I think this is a small and discreet group, so I think I could probably share it with you. It occurred because my wife and I, after 8 months at the agency, 24/7 job, decided we were going to go to our college reunion in California and cash in the old frequent flyer miles, go first class, see old friends, go to the homecoming game at Stanford. Well, first thing that happened is my chief of security at the CIA came to me and he said, Director, Mrs. Woolsey, I'm afraid we're going to have to ask her to go on a different flight because we can't have anybody named Woolsey on the flight. And I said, but wait a minute, my name's Woolsey. And he said, oh, no, sir, you need to fly an alias. And of course, my first thought was, uh-oh, there go the frequent flyer miles. So we take my wife out to the airport, put her on a plane in her nice first-class frequent flyer seat to California. My two security men and I get on another flight. They go by the cockpit, show the pilot and the chief flight attendant that they're carrying weapons, that they're authorized to by the federal government. We go back to the back row of coach, the 3 seats right in front of the bulkhead where you can't even lean back. I'm wedged in between these two big guys for 6+ hours to California. As we're walking down the jetway at the other end, the flight attendant comes over and whispers something to one of my security men. And his nickname was Rock for about 6 reasons. And he just cracked up. And since I hadn't seen Rock even smile in the 8 months he'd been working for me, I was a little curious. So I said, Rock, what's so funny? He said, you know what she said? She said, I've been on these flights for 20 years, and that is the politest and best behaved prisoner that we have ever had on. So now we know about the covert ops, and we can go on to the business of the evening. I think it's important for us to realize that we have 2 large energy systems in the country. One is electricity generation, the other is transportation. We have other smaller ones, some use of home heating oil to heat houses and so forth, but generally those are the 2 big ones. One, electricity uses virtually no oil. In the 70s, we used oil to produce about 20% of our electricity. Now it's down close to 1%. And on the other hand, the electric grid is about half coal and the rest nuclear and gas and hydro and a little bit of renewables. On the other side of things, in transportation, everything is 95–96% petroleum products. Absolute monopoly over transportation. That's true over most of the world. 90+% of transportation is petroleum. So petroleum has a monopoly on transportation, and OPEC, with nearly 80% of the world's reserves of conventional oil, has at least oligopoly, near monopoly over oil. Now, there are various things that we need to keep in mind as we look at these 2 energy systems. I sometimes summarize these by asking what 3 ghosts would say if they were still around and we could consult them about our energy policies. The ghosts I usually talk about are John Muir, George S. Patton, and Mahatma Gandhi. 3 very different individuals. Muir speaks, of course, for the environment, founder of the Sierra Club, founder along really with Theodore Roosevelt of our national park system. for staying away from polluting the environment, from stopping knocking mountains off, tops of mountains off in Appalachia, from, of course, from emitting CO2 or other global warming gases. Patton is all about security of all sorts, to protect the country and to deal with terrorism, to deal with various types of threats, and looks at energy through those eyes. Gandhi looks at energy through the eyes of the bottom 1.5 billion people in the world who have no real access to any kind of sophisticated energy in nothing much more than cooking using dried cattle dung in sub-Saharan Africa to cook dinners. Gandhi also is especially interested in the village and the community. It's interesting that when he was on his marches, he would carry a charkha, an Indian spinning wheel, with him. It's what's in the middle of the Indian flag now, in order to take a couple of hours every day to spin cotton. Seemed odd. Here is this famous man sitting in the middle of a field or on a beach spinning cotton while tens of thousands of people who are marching with him stand and watch. What he was saying is, do what you can economically in your local area. And furthermore, if you are more powerful economically locally, don't pick cotton and ship it to England to turn it into textiles. Do what you've been doing in Indian villages for hundreds of years. If you have economic power, you will also have more political power. Gandhi's attitude toward energy and a lot of other things is really very similar to Thomas Jefferson's idea in his long argument with Alexander Hamilton about the future of the American economy. Hamilton said it's all going to be cities and factories. Jefferson said, no, don't forget what he called the yeoman farmer, the individual who can put together and grow a lot of what he needs, make some of the rest, and has a sense of economic independence. And Gandhi's and Jefferson's point both was not just economic independence, it's political independence. The ability to stand up for your community in the debates of the state and the country. Well, those three sets of considerations are all, I think, fascinating and important. This evening I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Muir's concerns, a little bit about Gandhi's, but mainly about Patton's, about the search for security in energy and what this has to do with being able to create clean local energy that's accessible now, clean projects in your local community here in Durango and elsewhere in Colorado and in the country. In the first place, we have some very serious vulnerabilities of the electric grid. I feel a little bit like the comedian Henny Youngman. Take the electric grid, please. It grew up sort of like Topsy, without much planning, sort of as if a system of local streets and roads and state highways and section lines had grown in a somewhat chaotic way to become our national transportation system, rather than the interstate highway system having been laid down according to a very systematic plan in the 1950s and 60s. It is a remarkable piece of engineering, the electric grid is. It makes it possible with the alternating current stepped up by transformers to transmit power, electric power, at great distances, and that has some value and some utility. But it also, as a result of those transformers and as a result of the nature of the system, it has some very serious vulnerabilities. In the first place, the so-called SCADA systems, supervisory control and data acquisition systems, the control systems for the electric grid, used to be local back when utilities were largely local. But in the last decade particularly, the electric grid has come to be controlled more and more and more over the internet.